Erik ten Hag at Manchester United, whenever he's given the invitation, especially from a Dutch media outlet, to say a few things, he promptly says a few things. More recently, I saw no team dynamic. This is when he first got there. The mental resilience was very low. I looked at the culture at United. I asked, how did Manchester United become great? The club has brought in an unimaginable number of players in recent years who have not been good enough. Do you go with that? You're looking from the outside in. Do you think, yeah, he's turned that around with the arrival of people like Varane and certainly Lisandro Martinez, Casemiro being one?
I think it's a lot easier for him to say it now they're doing as well as they have in the recent games, and that some of his big decisions seemingly have really worked for the football club. But it's hard to argue with him, really. You know, it's felt like they've wasted a lot of money on big names that are more to sell shirts than actually produce on the pitch and help the harmony of a top side that are going to go on and win things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think he's got a point, and it's easy to say when you're riding high, which they are at the moment.
He's absolutely right about the culture of that football club, because there was an attitude of players thinking that they forgot what Manchester United is supposed to be. Man United was a winning machine. Man United was built upon a culture as being one of the few teams in the English football pyramid that didn't pay win bonuses because they expected to win on a weekly basis. So with that in mind, that seemed to have been lost somewhere along the way. You know, not just with the Ronaldo car crash, but with previous players coming in that just didn't seem to have got the memo that they were playing for Manchester United. Now, you can blame that at the players. You can also blame it at the recruitment policy. You can blame it at the managers that were in situ. I noticed that he's very, very motivated by the players that he signed, and of course has now put extra pressure on the fact that they won't be coming up short anytime soon. Yeah, but I think he's absolutely right to say what he said. I don't think it's anything different, to be honest with you, that he said previously. I think he's just amplifying what he said before, which is about the culture of this football club. He said it at the beginning, and now we can see it. And the culture, and clearly you're seeing people grasp the nettle. You've seen Marcus Rashford come back to the fore now. Now, whether I think Marcus Rashford is put on a pedestal and is not as good a player as people think he is, currently he's operating at a very high level. And if you're going to give people criticism, you have to give them praise in equal measure. Well, that will be as much down to the manager.
So, Dean, what does the pursuit of Wout Weghorst tell us about this new direction of Manchester United? In talks with him, keen to get him over the line, keen to get him there. He's currently on loan at Besiktas from Burnley. He's 30 years of age. We saw what he did in Qatar for Holland. Is he the answer?
Well, I think what Ten Hag is doing is he's saying, well, look at the signings I've already made and what a difference they've made. Trust me, if I bring in Wout Weghorst, which it looks like that they're going to.
They probably will.
Then you need to trust me that I'm going to get this right. Because so far, I can kind of say, well, pretty much all my decisions have worked out so far. And so you've got to trust him. Now, Wout Weghorst, you can look at his time at Burnley and go, didn't show anything like what's needed and required for a Manchester United side. But then I think, having heard what people have said who watch him more regularly, you look at what he did before he came to Burnley. He's a 1-in-2 goal man, which is very good. Like, I know there's Haaland, there's one every game standards, but that's generally not real life. If you're a 1-in-2 in a top European league, then that is a good return. And I think they're looking for a foil. They're looking for a foil for Rashford, for Anthony, for Garnacho, for Martial, for Fernandes to play off.
So you can see this.
A Giroud type player. I know Giroud's been mentioned as well, and I wouldn't say Weghorst is as good as Giroud, but that type of player that's going to be unselfish, but can chip in with a 1-in-2 ratio goal scoring record, which again is not to be sniffed at.
Yeah.
And to be that foil that maybe they want when they're on the counter attack, can be a real threat from set pieces as well. I don't think it's. It does feel underwhelming. I'm sure it would do to United, but I don't think.
But the characterisation,
and they're not spending any money. They don't want to spend any money.
The way we're characterising it is that he's poured scorn on previous recruitments. So ultimately, because this isn't a stellar name, is he not falling into the same territory? Well, right now he seems to have got a lot more right than he's got wrong. So with that in mind, I'm not entirely sure. I think he's talking about the overriding aspect of the culture that was allowed to creep into Man United, And I think he's right to have done it. I think he's right to have set that sort of standard bearer mentality of that's not happening here. He said it in his first or second press conference, which is about the culture that he was going to have. That's why it was surprising to see the Ronaldos and the other players walk out of the dressing room at half time, because it wasn't just Ronaldo in that pre-season game, it was a bunch of them. They obviously hadn't got the memo from Ten Hag that there was a new sheriff in town. Yeah. Now he's laid that flag down, and this guy, obviously, if he's playing for the Dutch side, he's not a mug, is he?
Well, he's sure he can do it in the big occasion. He can score on the big stage.
Yeah, and in the Bundesliga, he's been able to do that 1-2 at Besiktas at the moment. I know it's not the same as the Premier League, but we're very quick to just dismiss the other leagues.
You just look at Burnley and Besiktas and say, well, if he's landed at those clubs, then how can he possibly be at Man United?
But then he was very useful for Holland in the
and there's the answer
in the Euros, and maybe Ten Hag feels like he knows a lot more about Weghorst than certainly we do. We're just mainly looking at him and Burnley and going, what?
I know, exactly.
From that to Manchester United, it seems a big jump, but I don't think he's as bad as he was at Burnley, but as good as probably Manchester United.
The interesting thing is when you look at the language about the attitude and outlook, there's a glaring person sitting right in the middle of that, and that's Jadon Sancho, £75 million footballer that he has been very critical of, or suggested that he needs to go out and get his mind right and isn't up to the the required mental standard.
Yeah.
And so that's what he's talking about here.
And we've heard very little on Jadon of late.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.